If you are a owner of a 2020 Samsung QLED TV, you may have noticed that there is a new update out for that TV. And you're probably wondering whether or not you should update to it or not. Well, I'm here to tell you that answer. How is it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel Tech with KG. Before we begin, I want to be really clear that this is from the perspective of a Q90T owner in the US region. Now, your region may differ from my region, so any problems or any changes that I report may be different from what you have in your region. Also, this is a direct follow-up to the 2014.1 update video that I did. Now, there was a lot of issues that I ran into in that video, so if you haven't seen that video yet, make sure you check out that video first and then come back to this one and watch this. Now, I really think that this update was to fix the prior update. So if you have seen my previous video, I talked about how I had a scene in Sea of Thieves where it looked like the sky was melting, and what it was is it looked like the local dimming was all over the place. It looked like the backlighting of the TV was actually shutting on and off in certain areas, and it was just going haywire. It was absolutely like trippy. It was the weirdest thing I've seen from this TV. I did manage to get rid of that with a few factory resets, but something similar returned shortly after that. And luckily, this update came out, and now I don't have those issues at all. So I do think that this update is going to be fixing a lot of the problems with the last update, and that's what it was intended for. And I think that's why some regions didn't get it, because I think some regions just had more problems than others. Alright, so I'm going to get into a few details with 2016.1, and we're going to talk first about Gamemode, because it is completely different from 1462.1. In my opinion, I think that Gamemode is both better and worse than 1462.1. Now, I really have to say, most importantly, like the way that the brightness looks in game mode for bright scenes, for brighter games, it's absolutely incredible. So I think that it might be the best that game mode has looked from that perspective. When you switch from game mode on and off, there's not really a drop off in picture quality that I notice. So I think from that perspective, it's really great. The only thing that I call into question is that clouding that I mentioned with the local dimming. And I'll dive into that a little bit more later in this video. So one of the games that I tested in game mode for the local dimming algorithm is Tetris Effect, and this is definitely a really good stress test. And to be honest with you, I was blown away because it looked a lot better than it did in 1462, and it looked better than it did in 2014.1. But like I said, 2014.1 was a broken update, so I'm not really going to judge it too much off of that, but it does look better than 1462, and there's less blooming, because when I tested that game with 1462, I did notice blooming, and now I don't notice it as much, and if it does creep up, it's really on some challenging scenes. Outside of game mode, another really challenging scene is anything that is having fireworks involved. Man, this really is a good stress test for LCD TVs. So I definitely wanted to check out this video, and I wanted to compare to see what the best local dimming mode was going to be to use. And what I had noticed was on high, it was a little bit too aggressive, and I noticed a little bit of clouding from time to time on light trails from the fireworks shooting up in the air. Now, this is something that still kind of happens on standard, but it's not as noticeable. So I definitely found that standard was better, but it's still very aggressive, and I don't remember it being that aggressive on 1462. Now, I could be completely wrong, because I don't really have a time machine, so I can't go back and test out 1462 because there's no way to roll back these firmware updates. But I do remember that standard wasn't as aggressive, and now, to me, standard and high are very similar, where that wasn't really the case. Definitely something I noticed was way different from 1462. To me, what I think they did was, I think that they took the QN90A and all the other Neo QLEDs, that dimming algorithm, and I think they kind of applied that sort of recipe to this year's models. And now we have a complete change of local dimming. Now, to me, this was a mistake because I think that the Q90T was good the way it was, and you really didn't need to change it. So yeah, the local dimming algorithm definitely changed outside of game mode and inside of game mode. Inside of game mode is definitely more dramatic and more noticeable, and that's what I'm going to dive into right now. To be honest with you, I'd rather have 1462.1 back rather than have this local dimming algorithm. The reason for this is because highlight detail in darker areas just felt like sometimes they weren't there. And like it was weird because it's very dim on those type of things. So stuff just doesn't shine as much in a darker scene anymore, and it just doesn't pop as much as it used to in 1462.1. So I definitely dislike this about the new local dimming algorithm. I noticed this on Gears of War just from the lamps when I had it next to the U8G, and for the U8G to look better in local dimming really threw me off, and I did not like that at all because the picture quality overall was weaker on the U8G by far, but it just did such a better job with local dimming than the Q90T. But of course, this comes with a price. You didn't see much blooming at all on the Q90T, but on the U8G, you saw a ton of blooming. So for the local dimming to look better, yes, but there was more blooming. And another thing about the light source is when you look at torches or candles or anything like that, you'll notice that there is like a clouding kind of effect that goes when you pan your camera. And that's very, very annoying. You see it from time to time. And when you pan the camera, it seems like the local dimming is slow to react and it will dim when you pan. So the light source will become dim, and then when you stop panning it'll come back, but it just doesn't look good, it doesn't look right, and it wasn't like that in 1462.1. So yes, on one hand you get image quality that is probably the best I've seen from game mode in the Q90T, but on the other hand you get these new issues that creep up that I personally don't like. One improvement I did notice, and admittedly, I didn't use this as much before because I was like kind of iffy on AI, is intelligent mode. So I started using this when I was having the Sony A90J next to it, and I started using intelligent mode just for fun to see what it would do. And I noticed that a lot of times it would just kind of match what the Sony was producing color wise. And I'm like, how is it doing that? So I wasn't really able to figure out why it was so good at reproducing like a really good looking image, and it just looks better than movie mode to me. So an example of where I use intelligent mode now is Netflix. Believe it or not, some of the stuff that's meant for Dolby Vision on Netflix for Samsung TVs for some reason looks very warm, like too warm. And I have to say that putting it on intelligent mode just makes it look kind of closer to what Dolby Vision would be. So let me sum up my TV viewing experience after this update. So for movie watching HDR, I absolutely thought it looked good still. It looked great. It may have improved a little bit even, but things just look good. So I haven't had a problem with this TV in movie watching ever. So I just love this TV for movie watching. I think it is still a great TV in 2021. If you're still in the market, if you see it, it's a good movie watching TV for anybody not looking for an OLED TV. I like it. So, but for gamers, you're definitely getting less highlight detail than you were before in the smaller highlights. For whatever reason, I don't know why this is, but it does seem like highlights get dimmed down. I think it is to control blooming, but it does it way too much, and it doesn't feel as good as the previous update. So 1462.1 small highlights in HDR for game mode definitely was a lot better. On the flip side, brighter images in game mode, things like daytime scenes, beach scenes, definitely going to look a lot better now on this new update 2016.1 than it did on 1462.1. So it is brighter and it does pop more a lot in those daytime scenes. So if that's why you're buying your LCD TV, then maybe it is worth it for you to update. So, did you like this video? If you did, please give it a thumbs up and check out the other videos at the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.